Greetings, art students. Mrs. Davis here. I'm coming to you live from the art studio at my house. And I want to share with you a topic that we're going to be talking about for the next week. And you've heard me talk about it a lot in art, especially when you're in the art studio at school. I talk about it all the time. And I focus on it being like the three areas you might see in artwork everywhere you go. So everywhere you go and you see artwork, it's going to probably fit under one of these areas. It's either going to fit under the area of realism, or it's going to fit under the area of abstract, or it's going to fit under the area of non-objective. Okay, so I'll talk about each of these areas really briefly. Realism, as you remember, is the definition of realism is when you draw something or paint something or create something with art materials, you are drawing it the way you really see it. Like if you're going to paint a tree and you go outside and you're looking at a tree, a live tree, or it can be a photograph of a real tree as well, and you draw it or paint it exactly like you see it. It's going to be more on the realistic side. Photorealism is even more precise. Photorealism would be, it looks like you've actually drawn something that looks like a photograph. So you could show somebody your drawing and they'd think that you took a photograph. That's photorealism. It's very hard to achieve, and it is very, very high on the scale of skill. But basic realism, a lot of people can achieve that can draw. You're basically going to be drawing something exactly how you see it. Now, where it shifts with abstract is abstract has to do with taking something that you're drawing that might initially be realistic, and you're using your imagination to change it on purpose. It could be that you go from it being proportionally correct to not proportionally correct. In other words, you're exaggerating the features. You're adding larger or bigger areas that don't belong there. You're using your imagination to just change it on purpose. And I'm going to show you another example of that in a minute. And finally, last but not least, non-objective would be that thing that you are drawing that's supposed to be realistic, that tree that then becomes an abstract tree that you still can see that it's a tree, but it's abstract. Well, maybe now that tree has become non-objective, meaning no objects, nothing recognizable. When I look at that tree that's non-objective, you can tell me it's a tree, but when I look at it, I'm not going to quite see a tree. I might, but mostly I'm going to see lines and shapes that might represent a tree. So that's the way I think of non-objective. So I'm going to show you some examples that I did today. Instead of showing you things online, I'm going to show you my examples. All right, so I did a clownfish, and this isn't photorealism, but it's just your basic realism. So I took my markers and I created a clownfish. And if you look at this clownfish, it looks proportionally pretty correct of what a clownfish would look like. The markings, the color, the shape in general looks like a real clownfish. And maybe not photorealism, but you can kind of look at this and know, hey, that looks like a real clownfish, right? But then I decided to use my imagination and alter this little guy and make him a little bit abstract. I still want you to know he's a clownfish, but it's not going to look like the kind of clownfish you'd see in the water, right? So here's my abstract clownfish. I used a little bit of humor, and I even gave him a clown nose, okay? So you see that I've taken the clownfish. I've got some of the same elements going on with the white areas and the orange and reddish areas. I put a clown nose on him. I made an eye way too big. That eye wouldn't be that big on a clownfish. I exaggerated the tail a bit. And so he's sort of silly looking, a little cartoony, maybe a little Picasso-ish or whatever you want to call it. But he is more on the abstract realm of a clownfish. And then I've got my non-objective clownfish, which really isn't look like a clownfish anymore. You know, I've lost all of that because I took the elements that are in a clownfish and looked at all the individual shapes. I saw circles, I saw ovals, I saw lots of organic shapes. So what I've done is I've taken some of the organic shapes that I saw in my clownfish and just recreated them as a pattern or a design that's kind of fun, colorful. I kept some of the same colors for the sake of continuity, but this is considered non-objective. You can turn it any way. It doesn't matter because it can be a design in any direction. Okay, So somebody coming off the street, if I said to them, hey, do you like my clownfish? They would probably say, that's a clownfish? They wouldn't really recognize it as a clownfish. They would probably say, yeah, that's a clownfish, but a silly one. And then they would say, that's definitely a clownfish. All right, that's one example. My other example for realism is I did in pencil, this one in pencil. So I did a drawing of a toucan. As realistic as I could make it, using a value scale with 5 levels of white, dark black, dark gray, medium gray, light gray, and white. Did a little bit of erasing for some highlights, but this is my realistic toucan. Looks pretty much like you see in a photograph, but it's not quite photorealism, but it's closer enough to be called realism, right? Now, I used some black markers and had a little bit of fun turning that realistic bird into an abstract bird. So, based on the beak and the tail, you probably can tell it's a toucan, but you know, a toucan really doesn't look like this in real life, right? So I've added, I've kept the branch in, I've added some line work for the represents the feathers. I've done the similar beak, a bigger eye than you would see on a toucan. A toucan's eyes aren't that big. I exaggerated, the head, the beak, the eye, the tail, and this kind of hump area here is a little exaggerative. You notice that my leaves in this one, unlike this one that are very realistic looking leaves, these leaves are triangular, sort of very geometric-ish. You wouldn't see triangular leaves out there in nature. You might somewhere, I don't know about yet, but basically these leaves are supposed to look very abstract. So there's my abstract toucan. And last but not least is my non-objective or non-representational toucan. So if I were to show this to somebody and say, this is my toucan, they'd go, well, if that's a toucan, it looks like a toucan that's exploded. Like all of the parts came apart. And that's the way you can also look at non-objective work. No object. Not supposed to look like a toucan. But you see I have some of the same elements. I've got the shape of a beak, which are kind of curved triangular shapes. I've got some chunks of bodies all around. I've got circular shapes that might represent an eye socket, maybe some leaves thrown in there. But basically, you're supposed to be seeing shape, line, and color. In this case, I chose to keep it black and white for continuity, but this is my non-objective version of my toucan. All right, so I hope that helps you because your assignment that's coming up is going to be doing just that. So I want you guys to think of a subject matter. It can be animals, it could be a landscape, it could be a flower vase or still life or really whatever you're interested in drawing, if you want to draw a bull, I don't care. You could think of any kind of your favorite animal or think about drawing something or painting something you think you're good at drawing or painting. That will be your subject matter. Of course, you need to choose your medium. My one rule is that you stick to the same medium for all 3 pieces. You are going to do 3 pieces, and I want you to, once you pick your subject matter, let's pretend you've decided you're going to do a vase of flowers, okay? So I want you to do a very realistic flower vase, okay? Very realistic. Look one up on Google Images, a photograph of one, not one another artist has done. And you're going to draw that or paint it exactly how you see it. Then take that same flower vase, recreate it or reinvent it, and make it more abstract. Maybe your flowers are going to be very cartoony. Maybe you're going to droop your flowers and make them look way off. Maybe you're going to decide you want to use geometric shapes in your flowers that you wouldn't see in nature. However you want to change it up to use your imagination, you're going to turn that piece of artwork abstract. Then last but not least, take your same subject matter and make it non-objective. So you're going to take your piece of art and basically use lines and shape and color to create like a pattern or a design, but still represents some of the shapes that you initially had in your realistic or abstract piece. If you want to, at the very end, you can tape them together. I didn't do that in this video, but if I were to tape these together, it would be something like this, so that you can see all 3. I'm looking for my other one here. Oh, there it is. It's hiding. Here we go. You might do something like this and tape them all together, and you'll have one final piece to show me when you finish your art next week. So This is gonna take you a couple of days. I work on one piece at a time. Spend some time getting this right. Then spend some time having fun with this one. And spend some time having fun with this one as well. Attach them together in some way if you'd like to. Label each one with pencil. You know, oops, got them in the wrong order here. Realism, abstract, non-representational. You can choose mediums like my Tombow markers is what I did this in. Tombow markers in this. You could do various pencils. For the one that I did here was all art pencils, 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. You could use oil pastels. You could use watercolors, other kinds of markers, liquid watercolors, whatever medium that you're comfortable with, that you have at home. So basically that's your assignment for next week, and I hope you have fun with it. This one I really had fun with. The toucan probably took me several hours, not in one sitting though. And this one took me more like maybe altogether an hour and a half for all 3 pieces. But I didn't do it, I didn't sit down and just work an hour and a half. 15 minutes one day, 15 minutes the second day, maybe 30 minutes my third day. Just sort of work on it a little bit here, a little bit there. Before you know it, you have a trio of 3 amazing pieces of artwork. Can't wait to see what you guys are gonna do with realism, abstract, and non-objective. See you soon.